The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of all the earth. He never grows weak or weary. No one can measure the depths of his understanding. He gives power to the weak and strength to the powerless. Even youths will become weak and tired, and young men will fall in exhaustion. But those who trust in the Lord will find new strength. They will soar high on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint.
It started on February 19, 2015, and my husband had taken Keegan into the pediatrician. I had to work that day, and he took her to an appointment because her belly had gotten really big. We weren't sure what the cause was. We weren't for sure if she needed more fiber in her diet, even though she ate a pretty healthy diet. Her stomach was just really big, and then it started getting hard. So my husband called me that day when he was in the doctor's office, and he said, "You need to get up here to the pediatrician right now. This might be something serious." So I just dropped everything I was doing at work, left, and went to the pediatrician office. The whole entire staff was waiting for me up front. And the doctor sat me down. She said, "All right, Mama, sit down. You need to go straight to Dell's Children's Hospital. I definitely feel a mass in her stomach." I don't think it really hit me right then and there. I was just kind of going through the emotions. I was numb. And on the way to the hospital, my husband said, "This could be something really serious. It could either be leukemia, a tumor, or an autoimmune disease." And I still didn't believe him. I thought we were going to get there, and they just said they needed to do surgery. Maybe she had constipation or something like that. I really never thought in a million years it was going to be something serious. I even called my best friend and I said, "Hey, they're saying Keegan may have a tumor." And she's like, "No, you would be freaking out. You're way too calm." So I don't think it ever really hit me until her name was Dr. Solomon from the ER. She came in and she said, "There's definitely a huge mass in your daughter's right kidney. We have to do surgery as soon as possible and remove it." And then I just went numb, and I don't even know if I processed any of it, and everything just seemed to happen excuse me, really fast. And they admitted us into Dell's Children that night. Sorry, I'm really nervous telling that story again. And I still thought, even when I went to sleep that night, that I was going to wake up and it was all just a bad nightmare. And we stayed throughout the weekend. They had planned to do surgery on that Monday. And that night I went to sleep on the Thursday. Whenever we went to our room, my husband left to go get us clothes to stay. We weren't for sure how long we were going to be there or anything. And I was just laying there crying in the hospital room, and about midnight, some guy knocked on the door. His name was Dr. Rana, and he said, "Hey, I just want to talk to you." I said, "Okay." He said, "I'm almost 100% sure that your child has a Wilms tumor, which the good news is it's one of the more treatable cancers. We don't know anything for sure till we have surgery on Monday. I'm going to be her surgeon, but I'm also a father. And I just wanted to come into this room because I knew you'd be sitting here crying right now. And I wanted to let you know I'm going to treat her like she's my own daughter and take care of her and do the surgery, remove it, and then we'll see what stage it is." He's like, "But I promise you, I will treat her like she's my own daughter." So I think that was my saving grace that night, because it gave me a sense of peace that, okay, this guy is going to take care of her. I can't fix her. And that was the hardest thing as a mom, knowing that you physically can't just fix your child. And I never in a million years thought I would be the one to have a child with cancer. So it was comforting to know that somebody was going to try to fix her. But ultimately, in the end, I knew the only person that could fix her would be God. And I'm going to say that night we had a few conversations. I was really angry. I was thinking, I prayed so hard to get this child, and why my one and only child? Why would she have cancer? So I would say my faith was probably less than a mustard seed at that point. But then it's just, all these things started happening. I mean, as far as from the doctor coming to the room to the little girl who just had brain surgery coming to my room with wires hanging out of her head telling me it's all going to be okay, this is in God's hands. So I felt like even though I was going through the hardest thing I'd ever gone through, these people were just all like sent to my room and sent my way to help me get through it. So, and I remember she told me, all you can do is take it day by day. And honestly, that still applies to today. I mean, that's all I can do is take it day by day and pray that God protects her and watches over her. My name is Cheryl Gillespie. My daughter, Keegan Gillespie, was diagnosed with Wilms tumor stage 2 at 14 months of age. So I think the thing that I've learned through all of this is that everyone struggles. Everyone has a hard time in their life. And there's days where it's really hard to keep your faith. And I think that my family has helped me through this. I mean, my sister, she's been my rock. And in the darkest days in the hospital, I remember I laid on her shoulder, and I remember crying like a baby and just asking her, will you pray? Because it seems like when you pray that God really listens. And she told me, she was like, he listens to you too. You just have to talk to him. And it was hard for me in the beginning. I had been a Christian since an early age. But I think this was a true test of my faith going through this. And there were days where I wasn't for sure how I was even going to wake up and breathe again. And I would just say a prayer, and a sense of calmness would come over me every single time. And it was a repeating cycle. It's not that I said one prayer and everything's better. It's a process, and it still is. And I probably cry almost every Sunday I'm in church, and they're not tears of sadness. They're tears of just overwhelming. My heart just feels so full of love and God's grace that I just sometimes don't know how to express it, and I wonder if my tear ducts are broken. And I try to tell people, no, it's not depression. I've made it through one of the hardest times in my life, and I can do this. And one of the really hard days that I had through this whole thing was Keegan had one chemo treatment left, and she had one maybe a week before I received this phone call. But I turned my phone off that morning because I was nursing her and sitting in the rocker and just holding her, and she finally fell asleep. I was like, thank God she's asleep and she's not screaming and crying in pain. And my husband opened the door. He's like, your ringer's off on your phone. Why aren't you answering it? Your sister's been trying to call. Your dad's been in a terrible accident and he may not make it. And I was thinking, can this even be real? My child has had cancer, and now they're saying my dad's going to die. And so I couldn't take Keegan to the hospital because she just had a treatment. So I left and went to the hospital with my husband. My husband stayed at home. I went to the hospital after I had my moment of blacking out and not knowing what to do. And as soon as we got to the hospital, they said, your dad's in a really critical condition. More than likely, he's not going to make it. He's fallen off a 40-foot bridge. He's lost a lot of blood. We've already resuscitated him one time. So we're going to do everything we can, but we're not sure if he's going to make it. And growing up, me and my dad were very close. We didn't really talk about God, though. I knew he came from a really religious family, and he believed in God, but we never talked about it. He didn't go to church with us growing up. And luckily he woke up from his accident, and the first thing he talked about is the things that he saw whenever he pretty much died, and they resuscitated him. He said, if somebody doesn't believe, they're crazy. He said, I can't even explain what I saw, but everything was gold, and I saw these faces coming at me. I don't know if they were angels. It's hard to say. I like to think that they were angels. And he said, then I just heard loud drums playing, and he's like, I honestly think I saw the gates of heaven, and it wasn't my time to go. And that was just my sense of peace, because I've seen a lot of mothers lose their kids throughout this battle, and I could have very easily been one of those mothers. There was a day I didn't think I was going home with Keegan in the hospital. And just knowing that the man that I've loved the most in my life was able to finally share his testimony of faith with me at 36 years old was just one of those moments in my life where I realized God's great. He's awesome, and he's done amazing things in my life, and I hope that we're able to share this story with other people. So one of the days that I really remember during our stay at Dell's Children, Keegan ended up getting really sick after her first surgery, and come to find out she had a tiny hole in her intestine, so they had to do an exploratory surgery. Well, after that surgery, I went to the PQ to see her, and she looked lifeless. I honestly thought, my baby's not gonna make it through this. And I just remember tears were falling down on her little body, and I prayed and I prayed that she would wake up, and those thoughts crossed my mind, though, that maybe she's not going to. Maybe this is her time to go, and I'm gonna have to figure out how to get through this. And so we went to bed that night. They had her on diuretics, so her eyes were sunken in. I mean, she didn't even look like my child. And I don't know what happened overnight. I mean, her oxygen levels were so low, like she was barely breathing, and she was intubated. And the next day, when she woke up, her oxygen levels had increased, and she looked at me, and her throat was really raspy, but she was trying to say mama, and she actually sat up in her bed, and I thought, oh my gosh, maybe we are gonna make it through this. And she was on the road to recovery from that point on, and we were able to be transferred out of the PQ a couple of days later, and they had put her port in the exploratory surgery, so we started chemo, and I really wasn't sure how she was gonna take that. But I was just glad we had made it through the hard day that I didn't know would ever end or get better. And we made it through, and so she started chemo, and she handled her treatments really well. I mean, to this day, it's still a struggle during scan time, because the thought of a relapse, I think it crosses any parent's mind when their child has been through this, and you just hope and pray that they don't relapse, and you know there's a chance that they could. But yeah, that was just a great day when she woke up, and I can't even explain my feelings. That's what I hate about this whole experience. There's so many times that it's just hard to explain how you really feel. I mean, you know how you feel, but getting the words out, it's almost overwhelming to try to explain it. So when I was in the hospital, I just kept thinking of the song by the Casting Crowns, I'll Praise You in the Storm. And one of the lyrics that has stuck with me the most through all of this, it says, I'll praise you in the storm, and I will lift my hands, for you are who you are, no matter where I am. Every tear I've cried, you hold in your hand. You never left my side. And though my heart is torn, I'll praise you in the storm. And it makes me think of all the tears that I cried throughout this whole journey. And I thought, God caught those tears in his hand, and he stood by my side, and he got me through this.